Welcome to the Courtroom Club.
Glad to be here.
So here at Jonker Vorster Attorneys, we find ourselves talking about trusts quite a lot with clients. It's really a core part of our work.
Absolutely. Helping people protect assets, plan their estates, manage wealth. It's crucial stuff.
It really is. And today, we wanted to do a bit of a deep dive into something that comes up constantly. What are the actual costs involved in registering a trust here in South Africa, specifically looking ahead to, say, 2025?
Yeah, that's a great topic. We actually recently published an article about this on the Jonker Vorster Attorneys website titled Cost of Registering a Trust in South Africa in 2025.
Right.
So we thought it'd be useful to expand on that for you, maybe make it a bit more conversational.
Perfect. So maybe let's start right at the beginning for anyone who's maybe newer to this. What exactly is a trust, legally speaking, in South Africa?
Okay, sure. So fundamentally, a trust is a legal arrangement. You have a founder, that's the person setting it up, who transfers assets to trustees.
Okay.
And these trustees, they then hold and manage those assets, but not for themselves. They manage them for the benefit of other people, known as the beneficiaries.
Right. So it's like creating a separate legal pot for assets managed under specific rules.
Precisely. And it's not just one type of trust either. We see different kinds depending on what you need.
Like what?
Well, family trusts are very common, for personal wealth, making sure assets pass down smoothly. Then you have business trusts.
Ah, yes. Good for separating business assets from personal ones. Protection.
Exactly. And there are charitable trusts, too, for nonprofit work.
And all these different types, they need to be formally registered, right? It's not just an informal agreement.
No, absolutely not. They're registered with the Master of the High Court, and the whole thing is governed by specific legislation, the Trust Property Control Act.
So it's a proper legal process.
It is, which naturally brings us back to costs.
Okay, so let's break down those costs for 2025 based on what we see here at Jonker Vorster Attorneys and in our article. What's first?
The big one, often, is drafting the trust deed. This document is critical. It sets out all the rules.
The blueprint.
The blueprint, exactly. And the cost for drafting that professionally. It can range generally between R4,000 and R12,000.
And you really don't want to skimp on that part.
Absolutely not.
Mm.
A poorly drafted deed can cause huge problems down the line. Then there's the Master of the High Court's fee for the actual registration.
How much is that usually?
It's relatively small, usually somewhere between R250 and, say, R700.
Okay, what else?
Well, trustee appointment fees might apply. If you're appointing specific trustees, especially professionals, there could be fees associated with that setup, maybe R2,000 to R5,000.
Got it. And SARS. The tax man always needs to be involved somehow.
Always. You need to register the trust with SARS for tax purposes.
Yeah.
That typically costs somewhere between R500 and R1,500.
Right.
And finally, you've got general legal and administration fees. This covers the lawyer's time, paperwork, consultations.
The overall support from a firm like ours.
Exactly. And that can vary quite a bit, but a typical range might be R3,000 to R10,000.
Okay, so adding all that up, what's the ballpark total we're looking at for setting up a trust in 2025?
Realistically, you're probably looking at a total figure somewhere between R10,000 on the lower end up to R30,000, possibly even a bit more.
R10,000 to R30,000 plus.
Okay.
And what makes it lean towards the lower or higher end of that range?
Good question. Several factors. The complexity of the trust itself is a major one.
Makes sense. A simple family trust versus something complex for a business.
Right. Also, the number of trustees and beneficiaries involved. More people can mean more complexity in the deed and administration.
Okay.
And, of course, how much legal help you need. The extent of professional input required for drafting, advising, ensuring compliance that significantly impacts the final cost.
Which brings us back to the trust deed. You said it's the cornerstone. Can we unpack that a little more? What absolutely needs to be in there?
Definitely. A solid trust deed in South Africa needs to be crystal clear on several points. First, the name and the purpose of the trust. Why does it exist?
Okay, it's objective.
Exactly. Then, the powers and responsibilities of the trustees. What can they do? What must they do?
Their duties and limits.
Precisely. Also crucial are the rights of the beneficiaries. Who benefits, how, and when.
Right.
The deed also needs to detail how assets and income are distributed. And finally, it needs clauses about how and when the trust might eventually end its termination.
It sounds incredibly detailed.
It has to be. And that's why getting expert legal help, like from us at Jonker Vorster Attorneys, is so important. You can't just use a generic template.
No, it needs to be tailored to your specific situation, your family, your business.
Absolutely. We ensure it's legally sound and actually does what you intended to do.
Now, a really important point for you listening. Getting the trust registered isn't the end of the story financially, is it? There are ongoing costs.
That's a critical point. Registration is just the start. Maintaining a trust properly involves ongoing responsibilities and, yes, ongoing costs.
Such.
Well, a big one is annual financial statements. Trusts need proper accounting. Depending on how complex the trust's finances are, this could cost anywhere from R5,000 to R15,000, maybe more each year.
Okay, annual financials. What else?
If you use professional trustees, maybe an accountant or a lawyer acting as a trustee, they will charge fees for their services. That varies a lot.
Right, depending on their involvement.
Exactly. And then there's ongoing tax compliance, filing annual tax returns with SARS for the trust. That service might cost between R2,000 and R10,000 or more per year, again, depending on complexity.
So it's definitely not a set it and forget it kind of thing.
Not at all. Proper, consistent management is vital. It keeps the trust doing what it's supposed to do, protects the beneficiaries, and importantly, keeps you compliant with the law and avoids nasty surprises like tax penalties.
Okay, so if we were to pull this all together for someone listening, what are the main things they should take away from this discussion about trust costs in 2025?
I think the main takeaway is that understanding these costs, both the initial setup and the ongoing ones, is just fundamental to good planning, whether it's estate planning or asset protection.
Right, it's part of making an informed decision.
Exactly. And while, yes, there are costs involved, you need to weigh that against the long-term benefits a properly set up and managed trust can offer.
Benefits like security for your assets, maybe providing for your family down the line, or ensuring your business continues smoothly.
Precisely. Those long-term advantages can be significant. It's an investment in securing the future, really.
So, to quickly recap those numbers again for everyone: initial setup costs, covering the deed, master's fee, trustee appointments potentially, SARS registration, legal admin looking at roughly R10,000 to R30,000 plus, and then ongoing costs like annual financials, maybe professional trustee fees, and tax compliance, which are recurring annual expenses.
That sums it up well. And of course, navigating all of this complexity is where we at Jonker Vorster Attorneys come in. We guide you through the whole process.
From the very first conversation about whether a trust is right for you, through drafting that crucial deed, handling the registration, and advising on the ongoing compliance.
That's what we do. We provide that expert guidance.
Absolutely. So if you're considering setting up a trust or need help managing an existing one, please do reach out to us at Jonker Vorster Attorneys. For tailored advice on registration, tax, estate planning, we're here to help.
You can find all our contact details and more information on our website.
Definitely check that out.
And maybe a final thought to leave you with. When you're thinking about the security of your assets and your loved one's future, understanding these costs isn't meant to be daunting. It's actually the first, really important step towards making smart, proactive decisions using the powerful tool that a trust can be.